Friends, after a long time we meet again for a class on Aristotle. Precisely speaking, I shall be taking up today apparently a very small term in Aristotle's Poetics, because people often do not pay any heed to this particular term, which in actuality is rather significant. I shall be speaking on Aristotle's concept of Dianoia. You please look at the board, you can see there, I've written down there, Dianoia. And in this connection, let me tell you that in the 6th chapter of Aristotle's Poetics, Aristotle describes, or rather narrates the 6 important elements in a tragic play, or rather the 6 pillars that make up a tragic play. And these are, as you all know, fable or plot, number 1, number 2, character, number 3, diction, number 4, Dianoia or Dianoia, number 5, spectacle, and number 6 is melody. Now we may note that Dianoia comes fourth, preceded by diction and succeeded by spectacle. That the 3 things are interconnected, in fact. Character, diction, and Dianoia. How they are interconnected, I shall be explaining right now. The term Dianoia was not used by either Homer or Hesiod, but it was used by Herodotus. And Plato used the term with a certain variation of significance, and its meaning is allied to the Latin word cogitation, thinking. You all are familiar with cogito ergo sum. Cogito means think. I think, therefore I am. So cogitation means thinking. Now, well, it is difficult to translate a Greek word into English, but this Dianoia, in English it has been translated as thought. And this translation may seem to be confusing to a student, because Dianoia or thought in English translation may suggest the controlling idea. The thought is the controlling idea, and therefore, well, the students may feel confused because Aristotle did not perhaps mean this. In Aristotle's rhetoric, Aristotle discusses the term more closely And he refers to Dianoia as broadly referring to the content of the speech, giving the speaker's mode of reasoning. So look at Dianoia. What is Dianoia? Dianoia is connected with the speech of the character, and this speech will give us the speaker's, the character's mode of thinking, mode of reasoning. Now, why mode of reasoning is important? Mode of reasoning is important for three reasons. It may be because of refutation. When a character wants to refute the argument of another character, well, this is needed. So refutation, and then it may be persuasion. Now what is persuasion? Meaning, when somebody is not agreeing to me, I may try a series of ideas, a series of thoughts articulated in words to try to persuade him. Or it may be an expression of the emotional effect of a character. So, will you please note that character means speech. Speech is connected with diction, and diction or speech and thought are interconnected. Because we cannot speak, language cannot come without a prior thought. And without the language, the character cannot speak out, cannot express himself or herself. And unless the character speaks and acts, how can we understand the character, quote unquote, of the particular character? So the three things are interrelated: character, diction, and Dianoia. Well, speech or language has a deeper meaning, has a greater meaning. When the speech is used by a character, well, the speech is characterized by diction, or rather, diction and speech are interrelated. What is diction? Diction means the arrangement of words and images. D.W. Lucas says that Dianoia refers to the thought of the characters and not the thought of the author. A character may think in a certain way, but that does not refer to the thought process of the author or the author's pattern of thought. So, Dianoia is connected with the author's speech, and the author's speech means diction, which means the arrangement of words and images. So, well, a character can be understood. A character can be judged by the quality of language he or she uses. There are 6 kinds of words, and these 6 are: number 1, the current words in ordinary speech, meaning the words with which we are familiar, with which the people are familiar; foreign words with which people may not be familiar; metaphorical words which are not easy to understand always; and ornamental periphrasis. This is also not ordinary speech. And new coinage, such a word was not there. but it has been coined only shortly or recently. And then modified terms. These are the 6 kinds of words that can be used in a speech, and the diction depends on how they are arranged and how metaphors and are used. Language is the vehicle of thought. So diction, in a sense, is also a vehicle of thought. Therefore, once again I repeat, Dianoia, diction and character, these 3 are interrelated. Well, Aristotle says that the style of speech of a character should be clear and not low. Now by clarity, Aristotle means vividness, and by vividness we may understand actuality, meaning the actual speech of the living human beings. And we must remember that poetry must adopt common speech. Now, very strangely, we are reminded of Wordsworth, who in the preface to Lyrical Ballads had said almost the same thing, that the language of poetry should be the language of common man. Now, here also there is a suggestion that poetry must adopt common speech. Now, poetry is sublime, definitely, but in spite of its sublimity, poetry is rooted to the soil, and the most common meter is the iambic meter, which is so close to the language of conversation. So the language of conversation of the ordinary man and the language of poetry perhaps are not significantly different, and the iambic meter, which is very close to the language of conversation, is the most common meter that the poets use. Aristotle says that language should be appropriate, and that by that he means that language should be appropriate to the subject. Words and ideas are interrelated. So language means words, and words are the vehicle of the thought. Aristotle's concept of style is that style is like a garment, but this concept to us seems to be confusing, because all work is a unity, including language. Language cannot be separated from the final product of art. Art is a finished form. Art is a unity. Aristotle dwells on metaphor, but according to modern rhetoricians, all speech is metaphorical. So, speech, vehicle of thought. Thought reveals a character. So character, diction and idea are interrelated. Professor S.C. Sengupta, in his illuminating book, has given an example of how speeches differ according to characters, and how their different speeches exhibit the difference in their inner character. Well, he gives the example of the great play, Sophocles' great play, Antigone. Antigone comes to her elder sister Ismene with the news that Creon has ordained that no one should give a burial to the traitors. And the so-called traitors were brothers of blood of Antigone and Ismene. The so-called traitor, I mean, because the two brothers were there, and one joined the camp of Creon and the other revolted and wanted to take his own due because he claimed that he was the descendant of Oedipus. And as a result, there was a fight, and both the brothers died. The brother who was in the camp of Creon was given a clean burial, but the brother who revolted, his dead body was to be kept open. No burial must be given to him. Now, Antigone comes to Ismene with this news, and she decides that she would go and try to give at least a symbolic burial to her brother. And there we find the reaction and attitude of Ismene, who is timid and who fears that something dangerous may happen to them if they ever try to do that, refuting, disobeying the order of the king. But Antigone is fire. So, they talk in different ways, and their different speeches exhibit their different thoughts, and their different thoughts exhibit their different characters. So, Dianoia in Aristotle's Poetics is not an insignificant thing. It is not just one of the elements of tragedy. It is a very important element of tragedy. In fact, all the 6 elements are important, but Dianoia perhaps demands a spatial interpretation and explanation. So thought, once again, to sum up, thought means the thought of the character, not the thought of the author. Thought is expressed through language. Language means words. There can be different words and metaphors and the arrangement of them. And the words and metaphors used by the particular character can show or reveal the pattern of thought she or he is following. And from the pattern of thought, we can understand the character itself, the character, quote unquote, of the particular character. Thank you very much for today.